I'm Flavia Alya, and this is the last night of a course called Reimagining Paterson, December the 9th, 1992. We've assembled here some artists from Paterson who can really reimagine the city because that's their thing. And they're all living in Paterson now, working in Paterson, doing the kind of creative work that contributes to the cultural vitality of the city and makes it a place that the rest of us who aren't artists, love to be in. Apparently they love to be in it too. Anyway, they come up here to share who they are and what they do with you tonight, and I hope that you'll ask questions of them and find out more about them and just get to know them. I'm going to ask each of them in turn to identify themselves, tell us who they are, what they do, show us a little bit of their work, and maybe get a little bit into the question of why they're in Paterson, what brought them there, if they came from someplace else, what keeps them there, if they felt sometime like leaving, what brought them back if they ever went away. I'm going to start with Don Kommit because he has seniority, I think. And as I said before, we go back. Don and I, among others, worked together when the first wave of preservation hit Paterson in the 1970s. And Don was the Count of Passaic County. And he still carries his sketchbook. He's got it right in his hand right now. Speak.
Okay. To begin with, I'd like to show you some sketches of famous Patersonians that I did back in the 70s during that period that Flavia was talking about, when everyone sort of just was checking out their roots and we were concerned with restoring or maintaining the city before it was swept away by the deluge of suburbia and all kinds of forces that seemed to be out to destroy it. This is one of our great stars. This is Elizabeth Gurley Flynn.
The light hitting it too hard?
Who was...
Everybody know who Elizabeth Gurley Flynn is?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Rebel girl.
Rebel girl, that's right.
And I did these drawings when I was a guard at Jersey Dye. They were done in the evening. And it's strange because I could almost hear them talking to me when I was doing these drawings. This is Nathan Barnard, who was a lawyer in Paterson and a great humanitarian. And he built quite a few buildings and was responsible for temples and, of course, the Barnard Hospital and a good deal of the city. And his statue is in front of City Hall. This is Dr. McBride.
Sculpted, I might add.
By Gaetano Federici.
By Gaetano Federici.
Who was my teacher and mentor when I was
Is he in here too?
I did a Gaetano Federici, but he's not here. He's lost amongst my piles of drawings and books. When I rediscover it, I promise to bring you a copy, if not the original.
I think you're going to have to tilt him up a little bit more. So
this is Dr. McBride, also whose statue is in front of City Hall. This was my English teacher and the great poet Louis Ginsberg, father of Allen Ginsberg.
They were at a poetry reading a few weeks ago where Louis was being honored by the family.
He was one of the great kibitzers of Paterson, known as the Paterson Punster, by the way. Mm-hmm. This is Sam Colt, the inventor of the Colt revolver, who tamed the West, they say. And there's John P. Holland, the father of the inventor of the submarine, taught English at St. John's High School, and swore to sink the British Navy. Here's Garrett August Hobart, who was Vice President of the United States, a lawyer in Paterson.
Stuffed shirt.
And they say he burst from gluttony.
It gets better all the time, that story. Well, ate himself to death, sort of stuck in the bathtub. What?
That's right.
What's that?
Of course, Lou Costello.
Not bad. Oh, that's nice. That's sweet, that one. Great.
Yeah. The son of Beach Street. And
also East 33rd.
Yeah. I didn't know he lived on East 33rd.
Yeah, they took his playhouse down off.
The dollhouse in the museum.
Dollhouse is in the museum.
That's Abbott grabbing him by his lapel. Characteristic pose. This is Catalina Lambert,
Oh,
who was the one
him
of the
again.
great robber barons of our age, but builder of Lambert's Castle for his wife.
Literally builder of it. I mean, he
And
didn't
that's,
even hire an architect. That's a great. So, tell us about yourself, Don.
Okay, so I've been drawing and writing and painting for years. The drawing started, I guess, around kindergarten, maybe a little earlier, and I've off and on been drawing since then. The writing came later. The writing started out actually at William Paterson College with like essays and things like that, and I was just writing and writing. But then when I was going to graduate school, I met an artist, a really wonderful art mind by the name of Lenny Piero, he was the head of the art department at King College. He might still be. He's been at King College since it practically began. But I met him, we were going to graduate school in New Brunswick, and he used to do poems on canvas and on the walls. And I said, wow. Because I had a lot of poetry that we used to swim around in my head, but I wouldn't put it down on paper. I just didn't think I could write it down. But when I saw that, it just freed me up, and I just wrote whatever came into my head. I wrote my voice, and I've been writing my voice ever since.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing.
That circuit you did. You were in Paterson for a while. You left Paterson. You came back.
Yeah, I always go, well, things happen, you know.
Yeah.
We left for California, did this whole cross-country trek in a covered wagon. It was actually a 40 Econoline van. But my mother-in-law we thought was supposedly dying of cancer out in San Diego. So my daughter was around 3 months old.
Yes,
You know,
yes,
we did
yes,
this whole trek, cross-country, fantastic experience. Another one that opens you up to where you live and the expanse of America. Kiss the Pacific Ocean, you know. Fixed a flat on the Continental Divide, you know. All those kinds of experiences. And my mother-in-law miraculously recovered through chemotherapy and a lot of other things. She was involved in the San Diego Museum, and she was a friend of Bronowski. I forget his name, but he was really great scholar in human studies. And she opened me. She did a book on cooking, international cooking from all over the world. Food. Thelma White, her name is, and she was really a great influence on me out in San Diego. And she took me around to the museums, Balboa Park. California was a wonderful experience. I did a great deal of driving and traveling, the deserts, the different towns. San Francisco, I lived for a year. I lived a year in San Diego. I was constantly through Hollywood visiting my friend Joe Rose, who lived in North Hollywood, trying to break into movies. He just got through those circles of theaters. He did a lot of work, but he, like a lot of people who went to visit Lou Costello when he was out there, they learned about, but they didn't break in. Like Michelle Pisano, who tells some wonderful stories about visiting Lou out there.
Is this the Rose guy who made movies in Paterson?
Yes.
Yeah?
He's still doing acting every so often.
Gave Brooke Shields her start, right?
Right.
In Communion.
But, of course, unfortunately, Joe is not known for the really important work that he's done. Like, for instance, Are You Now or Have You Ever Been a Member of the Communist Party was a show he started out in New Brunswick with, and they took to Broadway, and he got wonderful reviews in that show.
And when you came back to Paterson, what did it feel like?
Actually, it's always great coming into town. It's because Paterson has a certain El Dorado, Wild West kind of quality for me. You know, you don't just enter Paterson. There's a whole kind of quality of shocks and laughs and uproar. You know, about coming into Paterson.
In waves, huh?
Yes,
Yeah.
right. And there's always people who recognize you. Where the hell you been? You know, that kind of thing. And so it starts, let's go for coffee, have you eaten, and things like that. You know.
I'm glad you're back. Ellen, what brought you to Paterson?
Well,
by the way, before you start, I made the mistake of not introducing the rest of the people here.
yeah, listen to Dawn, that's right.
But let me just at least name your name so that everybody can get in on this whenever you want to, and you don't feel like you're just going to have to come in on your spot. Ellen Denuto, of course, going to talk next. Mitch Santiago, a graffiti artist. Bob Core, a muralist. Okay, so we're a family now. You can go, Ellen.
I've always been an artist. I have a degree in fine art, and I've done commercial advertising and also worked gallery work throughout the world, actually, in Europe and New Jersey and New York and so on. I came originally to Paterson to have a studio in the artist housing. I didn't intend to live there because I really thought Paterson, as most people do, was in flames as we speak and getting shot and all that stuff. And I spent the first year...
You know, my daughter quotes you in her master's essay.
Just commuting, you know, from where I lived in the suburbs to my little studio and then get back on Route 80, and I left. And after a while, I don't know what happened, but I ventured out and I finally found the Roma Club. I think I went with June, the woman who did the book, I did the book with. And there are these little cappuccino bars. There's 8 of them in a row that are usually fronts for numbers, things, and so on. But there are a whole bunch of them, and you just go in and get your wonderful cappuccino for $1, and everybody meets and gets their newspaper in the morning, and it's just really fun. Anyway, I started to see that, and I was offered a position at the Paterson Museum because I was the only photographer they could find. They have this incredible glass plate collection of photographs from before the turn of the century and nitrate negatives and so on that need to be printed and recorded. This is one of them. They were just in heaps throughout everywhere. So we had to categorize them, file them, print them, and so on. So that's when I fell in love with Paterson, because I got to see what the city had once been and what it still could be. And I had noticed, but didn't really pay attention to, in Paterson, everybody's so busy running around, not getting hit by cars and people and so on, that you rarely look up. And if you look up, everything from the first floor up has not been renovated, and you see all the beautiful architecture and everything that remains of Paterson.
Yeah. It's like we live in a different time zone on the street, you know?
Yeah, and
or it inhabits a different time zone above us.
Yeah, and my interest grew. I did this poster of the historic district for a development corporation that only shows a few buildings that I was told to photograph. I would have done other things had I had the opportunity. And this is more the kind of thing I actually do for myself. I've documented the city now for about 5 years, places that I love or that fascinate me. And I've applied for grants to do a book. June, the writer that was supposed to be here, got a book to do a book of poetry, and I did the photography for it. We're going to do a second one now. And it's endless. I mean, I think even if I move from there,
it'll still be your subject.
I will just come back. I mean, you know, I think I'm tied enough to it that it looks like I may have to move there out of this particular place anyway, but that really disturbs me because it's my town. It's like where I belong. I didn't come from there. I came from a totally different background. But there's something about it that when you walk down the street and people actually know you and recognize you, and you can just stop and talk to people that from all different levels, all different ages, and it's a great place to be.
Show us some more of your work here.
This is my personal work, which has been inspired, again, by Paterson, the spirituality of the city and the religion that's in the city. I guess you can look at it both ways. It's a multicultural city, and many different cultures exist side by side with each other and intermingle, and there are there's wealthy sections, there's very, very poor sections, but they all have this spirituality and this energy. You can go up to the falls and sit there and sit for an hour, and people in Mercedes and Jaguars come in that are stopping back, that had lived there as kids. And there are people that go to Libby's, this little hot dog place that time forgot, that if you go there, everybody's smoking cigarettes and eating Texas wieners and drinking coffee. I mean, and that's their life. This is what they do. And but there's just something about it, and the spirituality.
There's a picture in here of the Olympic Diner that's just across the street from Libby's, isn't there?
Through the objects that fascinated me. I'm not a Catholic, but the objects and the things that they have fascinated me, and I started working with them, with people.
Is that image that you used for the
Invitation?
in there?
That's this one here,
Yeah, why don't you show it? This was the cause of a recent furor in Paterson. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it, Ellen?
It was sort of a comedy
It's sort
of
a
errors.
classic Paterson story, so I think it's worth
We have several
recounting.
different, I'm on the Historic Preservation Commission, and the people that were there basically, and what was it? The
District Alliance for
for Tourism. There's several different commissions that are trying to preserve the buildings and reuse them again and restore them in the manner that they once were. And anyway, we were having the our bicentennial, and they suggested that in this one mill called the Ivanhoe Wheelhouse, I was going to have an exhibition there. And we had the invitation made up, and they suggested, well, you didn't put anything about the bicentennial in the invitation. So I included that in the invitation, and the day that they reviewed it, this photograph was being screened by the printer. So they didn't see the photograph. They assumed it was going to be something from Paterson, like one of these building shots. So the invitation was made, and it went out to our mailing list at the museum, which is 1,500 people.
Can you all see what this image is of?
No, could you pass it around?
Is it okay to pass
sure.
it around? Sure. It's, just let's get it on the camera. The camera saw it. Is that right? Anyway, it's...
So it went to the clergy.
It's a back view of a semi-undressed woman with a large rosary bead, a set of rosary beads going down her back.
So it was, so anyway, the invitations went out to 1,500 people, the clergy, all the Catholic schools, all the senators, everybody that could possibly get crazy over this did.
It came up in the city council meeting.
Well, the first
It
call was
incredible.
from somebody that was going to destroy the show, so we didn't know if that meant they were going to not let the show be hung or whether he was actually physically coming in with a bat. We didn't know. So, of course, there had to be extra police. So then, and then
there was people who couldn't come and people who,
then there was a
who
brother
had to
who
keep it-
called, right, a brother who called
Right.
Channel 9, and then Kaidi Tong was, did her thing. And they would tease throughout the news. They would show just the end of the cross, right at the back, small of her back. In the beginning of the news, for eyewitness news, they'd show a little bit, and then they'd pull back, and the Führer in Paterson. And it was just...
She got on to WBAI.
I was on an interview with WBI, but the other one was, it was called Fire and Something in Paterson. It was really interesting. Yeah, it was really a joke. But anyway, it turned out a lot of good publicity.
A lot of good publicity, and the typically Paterson thing about it is that, in the end, everybody came to the show and loved it.
It was just
Not
a matter
everybody.
of everybody...
There were two people who wrote sort of
Everybody
negative
wanted to
remarks in
cover
the
their
book.
butt and their job, see? So
Right.
that as soon as they found out
It's a
that
funny
there was a
way to
big
put it.
furor, and then it got to be like everybody was patting me on the back, and the mayor was there, and everybody was there, and they thought it
Yeah.
was just great. But
Yeah. So the District Alliance for Tourism, which had sort of promoted this event,
they were all
had
going
to
to kill me. I
had
wasn't
to
going to go
clean
to
their-
another meeting.
had to clean the egg off their face for a little
Also
while. But
that-
they rolled with it, and I thought that it was a sign of Paterson's coming of age that it could roll with it. I mean, here was this sort of small town furor over something that was religiously offensive to people, but eventually, they forgot.
Also, it was the Ivanhoe Mill, which is circa 1830 paper mill that has a little full...
1865, actually.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway...
It
so-
started out earlier, but the building that's there is 1865.
Okay.
I think.
It's all
But anyway,
brick.
it's a beautiful little building with its own little waterfalls. And Ellen had really wonderful drinks and great salads. And it was a pilot, as far as I'm concerned, for the possibilities of a coffee
Here,
house
here.
gallery
Yeah.
that should exist in
We just
Paterson.
talked
You
about
just
that
put up
today.
this